The video you are about to see is one from a production we called Reunion 85. What it is a tribute to Dr. Mort Glosser, who was director of the high school bands in Gadsden, at Gadsden High School, as well as Emma Sansom, for many years, and who only recently passed away. A man of great compassion, a friendly man with whom you always had a rapport. This Reunion 85 featured Steve Allen, and Steve wrote a special march for Dr. Glosser, Fess as we called him, short for professor. Steve Allen wrote the march, and I was very fortunate in finding some of the parts, including the conductor's score recently, which I delivered to his wife, Catherine. The program, Reunion 85, was the brainchild of Ted Lowi, or Ted Lowi, as he prefers to be addressed. Ted is the head of the political science department at Cornell University. And the Lowi family has always been involved in music and was always involved with Dr. Mort Glosser. I met the man back in September of 1937. I was in the 7th grade at Gulfstream Junior High, and Dr. Glosser started a band. He came to Alabama in 1936, in September in fact. The following year, 1937, following in my father's tradition, I took up the clarinet, which was one of Dr. Glosser's favorite instruments. And I would walk down from Gulfstream to Emma Sansom High School, where Dr. Glosser would hold class, and started the first Emma Sansom High School band. He had started the year before with Gadsden High School. And I shall never forget that evening of Reunion 85, when so many of Dr. Glosser's former students came back to pay tribute to him. I remember Bob Royal, who was in town from Madrid, where Bob has made his residence for quite a few years. Bob was there. Bill Day was there from Memphis, from Decatur. Bobby Simmons, and the professor received a telegram that night from the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. It was quite a thrill for Fess, for the President to take the time to send him a personal telegram on this very memorable evening. A wonderful evening, a wonderful time, wonderful music, and a surprise for Fess, because he thought the whole thing was there. What we were doing was to honor his former students, not knowing that the whole reason for the thing was to honor him. And I'll never forget that Dr. Glosser sent me a thank you note for what I had done. And I had done so little, and that man had done so much for the music of this city, this county, this state, and this country, because he put many musicians and music directors throughout the United States.
Seemed like about 50 years ago, I was up in the state of Iowa, where I was trying to build a high school band, small town there. And one spring morning in 1936, I received a letter from Mr. Donahue, superintendent of schools in Gadsden, Alabama, inquiring as to whether I'd be interested to come to Gadsden and see about building an instrumental music program here. He offered me $100 a month. That's more than I was making. So I took him up on that. And that fall, early September 1936, I drove into Gadsden, Alabama, with everything I owned part of the back seat of an old Ford car. Didn't know a single person in Alabama. When I left the Midwest to come to Alabama, my plan was to stay about 2 years, get this thing moving, and then go back up in the Midwest somewhere where my roots had been up to that time, where I knew a lot of people. But second year I was here, I met a little lady, a little Gadsden gal that changed my plans, and she's been changing them ever since.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here tonight to the tribute to Mort Glosser. I can't tell you how proud I am to be here and how proud I am to be your mayor. I'm proud to be your mayor because you people care. And that's crystal clear tonight because you're here. You know, I've got a few things to say. They told me to make it short. I'm going to try to. But I was waxing our van today. And I haven't waxed the van since we've had these Connie's. And I just haven't ever done that. And a fellow pulled up in front of the house and he came up and I'm waxing the van. And he just talks to me and watches, and he said, well, what are you waxing the van for? And I said, I've got to pick up Dr. Glosser and Cat tonight. I want it to look good. He stayed over an hour waxing the van. That's important. I talked with Dr. Art Dennis just the other day, and he told me, he says, you know, Mayor, the folks in the cafeteria are working extra hard and getting everything ready extra hard. That makes a difference. You know, we have the Jacksonville State Jazz Ensemble behind us here tonight. And Ron Serace and the crew came up without any questions asked when we told them who we were honoring. Volunteered almost. We have the great Sansom High School Band and the Gadsden High School Band that have meant so much to this city. And these young people, they're busy. You know, they're not like some of us used to be. They're very busy and have a lot of places to go. And they've been here practicing almost all day. They've been working on music for weeks. And that's special. We have Joe Carricker, Joe Nugent, and his group, and all the crew that are going to play for the reception tonight. They volunteered. They want to play. We're not talking about money and big budgets. And that's special. I see Dewey Countryman, my band director. It meant so much to me in the audience tonight. He hadn't been feeling well for quite some time, but he's here tonight. And I know why. And then we have Steve Allen, internationally known, who volunteered to be here tonight. No contracts, no checks. He wanted to be a part of this. I've got to close out now, but I want to tell you a real quick story. I was called over to Nan Callan's house several months ago, and there was a Dr. Lowi there, who I've known for a long time, and his family, and he says, Steve, I've got this idea, and he told it to me. And I said, that's a wonderful idea. And that's a wonderful man. And this is a wonderful city, and it'll all work. Let's do it. So ladies and gentlemen, let's do it. I'd like to introduce our Master of Ceremonies tonight, a good friend of mine, a great citizen in this city, founder of the Boys Club. You all know him. Let's give a big hand to Basil Gilbert.
What a great honor it is to be a part of this proceedings here tonight. It's really wonderful, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it. Mort Glosser's influence on this city has been tremendous, as all of you know. His impact on the lives of the students has been felt all across this great nation. And the influence can only be measured by the fact that you are here tonight. You know, many of Mort's former pupils have become very productive citizens and in so many diverse locations and in so many cities across our great country. You know, most of Mort's students, some of them, many of them, went on to choose careers in music. And tonight we have one of the finest college bands in the nation. It's a group of musicians that I think reflects the quality and the tradition of musicianship that Mort Glosser established in this area. Under the direction of Dr. Ron Serace, here is the Jacksonville State Jazz Ensemble. we have here in Alabama. How about another round of applause? If you will permit me, I'd like to take just a few moments to read some of the many letters and telegrams that came in to us in honor of this auspicious occasion. First, I think I will start with this. The governor of the state of Alabama, the certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Mort Glosser in recognition of his work since 1936 establishing high school bands in the Gadsden area and for his outstanding contribution to education as the superintendent of the Gadsden City Schools from 1965 to 1975. Given under my hand and the great seal of the state of Alabama, the 6th day of April in the year of our Lord, 1985, signed George C. Wallace, Governor of the state of Alabama. Dr. Mort Glosser, dear Mort, it is a pleasure to join with your many, many friends and admirers to honor you for your long career in education, and especially your outstanding work directing the Gadsden High and the Sansom High School bands. Through the years, you have been an inspiration for all of your students. Your high principles, integrity, and standards of conduct have been a model for those who looked up to you. Mort, you're one of Gadsden's treasures, and you've meant so much to so many. You are truly deserving of this fine honor. It is also my pleasure to welcome Mr. Steve Allen to Gadsden and Alabama's 4th Congressional District. Like yourself, Mort, Steve Allen is one of the most talented people in this profession. You have my best wishes for the most enjoyable evening and most continued success. Warmest personal regards, sincerely, Tom Bevel, Member of Congress. Dear Dr. Glosser, congratulations on the very special night. I'm aware of the outstanding things that you have done for Northeast Alabama for as many years as I can remember. I wish I could be there with you in person tonight to honor you. Best wishes and warmest regards, Jeremiah Denton, United States Senate. And dear Dr. Glosser, I'm delighted to send warm greetings and congratulations to you as you are honored at Gadsden State Junior College in Gadsden, Alabama. This is a particularly appropriate tribute to you and your gift of musical and leadership abilities to the people of Alabama through your pioneering work in establishing marching bands in the state. America's marching bands are an important part of our tradition and spirit of pride in community, state, and country. You have every right to be proud of your accomplishments and of your many contributions to your state and fellow citizens. Nancy joins me in sending best wishes now and for the future. Again, congratulations, Ronald Reagan, President of the United States. Which will be held in honor of Dr. Glosser, and his former students and their families are invited, as are the patrons. We hope you will attend. It will be held in the cafeteria on the hill directly behind this auditorium. You'll find it perhaps easier to gain entrance and to get there if you'll use the 2 side doors and go through the back, straight through these 2 doors on either side. There's also a van, I believe, out front for those of you who might think you would need that. Any of you out there who may be nearing my age, I'll see you in the van. A little bit earlier, you heard a portion of a tape that Dr. Glosser did for us several weeks ago in his reminiscing about his earlier years and some of the bands that he remembered. Well, we'd like now to play for you just a small portion of another tape that he made and share with you one of the lighter moments that Mort remembers.
I was thinking about probably the funniest halftime band show we ever had. although it wasn't exactly planned that way. It was Fire Prevention Week. Now, Fire Prevention Week always comes in October. You know, on the anniversary of October 8th, 1871, when the Great Chicago Fire, when Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over the lantern in the barn and burned down about half of Chicago. So we built our halftime pageantry around Mrs. O'Leary and her cow. And so we called out at the Spencer Williams Packing Company to see if they could bring a cow in there, tie her up down at the end of the football field, and they said they could do that. So we dressed Porky Deal up like a old Irish lady. And part of the show, Porky was going out there and carry a lantern and a bucket and proceed to go through the motions of milking that cow, and the lantern get kicked over and all that stuff. Well, everything went along pretty good. The whole first half, the old cow just stood down there and chewed her cud during the first half of the football game. But when it came time for the halftime show and the band charged out there and warped down on that first opening fanfare, that old cow, she pushed the panic button. She really shuddered her udder, see? Went berserk. She started running around there and circled out at the whole length of that rope I had tied around her neck. Porky wasn't one to be dismayed, though. He's going to see this thing through. Show must go on. So he went right on out there and was trying to ease up that wild cow. And old Porky was doing out there with his long dress and a lantern in one hand, a bucket in the other. He was just skipping rope every time that old cow circled around there on the end of her rope. And I expect that was about I doubt if Barnum and Bailey could have come up with a better act than Porky put on there that night.
Tremendous. You know, and with us tonight, we have Mrs. O'Leary of Chicago. Well, perhaps I should say Maurice Porky Deal of Huntsville. Porky, I know you're out there where you want to stand. Come, Porky. Everyone here tonight knows the reason for Reunion 85. That is everyone except Mort Glosser. Now, he's convinced that he is here tonight to pay homage and tribute to you, his former students. And we can't convince him otherwise. That's exactly why he said he would come and do this thing tonight. He said it was a tribute to the students and the people that he loved. Well, as I said, we couldn't talk him out of it. But it's our treat. Because here to perform for you tonight, may I present Dr. Mort Glosser, clarinet, and Catherine Rogers Glosser, piano.
10 years ago, we've been doing a few musical programs around some of the other nursing homes. We did one program at the Rotary Club. I was the program chairman. Next week, they appointed a new program chairman. One of the things we've been doing here lately seems to be a renewed interest in George M. Cohan songs. George M. Cohan wrote a lot of great songs, which are coming back here lately due to the mood of the country. When our boys went over to France in World War I, he wrote a tune called Over There. We won't be back till it's over there. Here these last few days, that's become a TV commercial. And, but at that time, it sold more copies than any song that had ever been written. And it's even recorded by two great opera stars, Caruso and Madame Schumann even made records Over There. Then we're going to play Cohan, Give My Regards to Broadway. And for these people that are here from New York tonight, we're going to give it a little New York treatment. And we'll end up with Cohan's song called It's a Grand Old Flag. Before we do that, I have to apologize. Before the way we do this, I need to apologize to John Philip Sousa, Johann Sebastian Bach, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Arthur Fiedler, Frank Sinatra, Fats Waller, and everybody else that ever been in the music business. walked in, I met, Jack Cannell here from Knoxville, Tennessee, Charlie Edwards from Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry Hoffenberg from Nashville, Tennessee. Since many of these clowns have become Tennessee hillbilly, we thought we'd play a hillbilly tune. Make them feel home back out here in Alabama. This is an old Eddie Arnold record, and Eddie called it Anytime, and he wound up, anytime you say you want me back again, that's the time I'll come back home to you. So, and we put a little yodel-lady, that'll make them feel home for sure.
Dr. Theodore Lowi, a very renowned author and political scientist. We know him, I mean, he's just one of the many Lowis that played in Mort's band. But let me introduce, if you will, a good old boy from Alabama, ladies and gentlemen, Ted Lowi. Ted?
That is one bodacious act to follow. I sure am glad I'm not an act. That's the only thing that saves me. I'm thankful that I'm here only and under very special restrictions not to speak for 50 minutes, which is my 25-year-old habit they pay me for. I'm here very simply to explain why I brought you all together, and especially why we have the joy of that performance and also joys to come with Steve Allen as soon as you can get me off of here. It's all very simple. It's all because of a good idea. There's just nothing more powerful than a good idea. And that's all I had. That's what attracted Steve Allen. He's a victim of good ideas. He's a soft touch for good ideas. We didn't know each other personally. I had the advantage. I knew him and he didn't know me. But there were no personal favors involved in this. I had no cousins or other ties, the usual Southern thing to bank on. All I had was his address and who's who, and a good idea. Let me read to you some excerpts from a letter I wrote to Steve Allen, February 16, 1984, and then a few excerpts from the letter I got back from Steve Allen exactly 1 week later. This was addressed, by the way, to Mr. Stephen Allen by my secretary, because she was copying out of Who's Who address, and it's probably the only time since his mother gave him the name Stephen Valentine Patrick William Allen that he has been called Stephen. Unfortunately, he wasn't upset by being addressed as Mr. Stephen Allen, so it got to him. And these are excerpts from my letter to him, February 16, 1984. Dear Mr. Allen, it is my pleasure and privilege to write to you on a subject of profound concern to one small town, and I hope of ultimate interest to thousands of people in the United States. I represent a group of alumni, that was hopeful, but it came. I represent a group of alumni of Gadsden, Alabama High School, who would like to express our gratitude for the life's work of a man who was band director and then superintendent of schools for over 30 years, during which he shaped the cultural lives of a great many individuals and families. Mort Glosser, the man we seek to honor, taught every child every instrument and instilled in each of us a sense of music as art and music as part of life. After a quarter century of public school music, in the 1960s, he was called upon to serve as superintendent of city schools. In that position, he supervised one of the most successful and peaceful civil rights adjustments in the United States. In the mid-1970s, he retired, bought a small farm on the outskirts of Gadsden, and is trying his best to raise a few cows. Maybe one of them is Mrs. O'Leary's, I don't know. February 23rd, 1984. Dear Mr. Lowi. That's the way it is. I am reading your letter of February 16th with one foot out the door of my office, since I'm about to run off to perform with the Oklahoma City Symphony, after which I have to do a benefit show in Chicago. To get to the point, I'll be happy to write a special piece of music in honor of Mr. Glosser, and I thank you for according me the privilege. He does sound indeed like one of those quietly heroic figures of the sort that, by odd coincidence, I was speaking about last night while being interviewed by a radio man phoning from Chicago. I had just made the point that I saw precious little heroism, if any, among society's leaders and political figures in this country, but that I felt nevertheless there were people doing heroic work in our world, for the most part in unheralded obscurity so far as national or world media attention are concerned. Mr. Glosser would seem to fall into that category. Steve Allen was right. We could have told him that, but he saw and felt, had the instinct with us, the force was with us. The work of important people like Mort Glosser is heroic and unsung. Mort is one of many thousands. He's the first among equals, but he's one of many thousands. What people like Mort Glosser do is day-to-day heroics. He did it then, many do it now. The secondary schools are built on heroism, but the heroism escapes our attention and therefore escapes our recognition. So when we are here to honor Mort Glosser, we honor all those unheralded heroes. That is the good idea that attracted me, that captured Steve Allen, and that motivated and inspirited a goodly number of people, starting with the mayor's office and Indy Garment, whom I will be properly recognized tonight for their heroics or at other times. So that's the simple idea. Now my next task at this point is to introduce Steve Allen to you. But I don't need to do that, of course. You know almost everything there is to know already about Steve Allen. Except that he is also a man of goodwill and a man of great generosity. What I would like to do then, instead of introducing Steve Allen to you, is introduce Gadsden to Steve Allen. Steve, Gadsden is a city of great spirit and a city of goodwill that would make you feel very much at home. Let us therefore, Gadsden, show Steve Allen some of our goodwill and our good spirit by giving him a hospitable ovation now.
shows for you tonight, but I'm simply playing a small role in something more important than mere entertainment. And when I told Ted and the rest of the program committee that I was very happy, since I, took the trouble to come to town to make my services available in any way that they might be deemed suitable, it turned out that one of the things they wanted me to do was to be the backup piano player for some more solos. I'm very happy to do that. We're going to do it's interesting to hear these wonderful young musicians, by the way, play music in the style of the 30s and 40s and 50s. And I find as I travel around the country that the very best of the young musicians in their late teens and early 20s are playing that traditional great American form of music, and not so many of them are in some of the bizarre forms that are perhaps more commercially popular today. In any event, now we'll go back, as I say, to some of those songs from the 30s, an old song called Unconfessed. And I've discovered that some people think I played the clarinet in that movie. Of course, the music you heard was played by the great Benny Goodman. But there happens to be one scene in the film where you do actually hear me. So you can always win a bet in the saloon that I did play in the movie. It happens to be the scene where Benny is 9 years old and is practicing the scales in his first instrument. Benny was not able to make the sound that a beginner makes, but since I was just learning the instrument at that time, that was as good as I could play then. So where you see Benny in short pants playing scale, you're actually hearing me. And the reason I mention that, or think of it anyway, is that the song that Mort's about to play for us now, Memories of You, was the love theme from that great old song.
that dime, so I'm going to take it. I just finished playing with the Columbus Symphony a few days ago, and if we had a full orchestra of that type here, I'd be doing some of my well-known songs, but I've learned something interesting. When I would interview the great songwriters of the century on my shows over the years, I assumed that they would want to talk most about their hits, but they got tired of their hits very early in their lives, I discovered. And I find that's true of all songwriters. Because if you have a hit, everybody plays it at you and for you, and in a few months, you're tired of listening to it. So we're always more interested in what we're writing at the moment. And I have a song that I've been working on the last few days. In fact, I only have the first 4 lines of it finished. And since you're such a nice, warm, responsive audience this evening, if I may, I'll use you as sort of a test market group, and if you like the first 4 lines, I'll finish the song, and if not, don't worry about it, because I write them all the time. The song is called Ruth. The reason it's called that is that back in my high school days, that was the name of my girlfriend, and Ruth and I used to ride all over town, and she would sit, of course, in the back seat of my little motorcycle. So that's the story behind this kind of a country and western rhythm. Ruth rode on my motorcycle on the seat in back of me. I took a bump at 95 and rode on ruthlessly. There's another kind of a song I've wanted to write for years because I've been puzzled by the success of songs in this category. I'm not criticizing them, I'm just puzzled by their success. I refer to songs which have only one word for a title. Now, I don't care what that word is, you cannot convey any interesting thought with one word. It's not possible. Another, and even more surprising factor is that the word is in a foreign language. And the most surprising element of all here is that the word is remarkably obscure in that foreign language. Many examples. It's been a hit for 45 years. It's called Frenesy. Very few people who speak Spanish their whole lives have any idea what that word means, but it's a big hit. Then there was the Italian song from about 25 years ago. Folare, whoa. I know people don't even know what whoa means, much less Folare. But again, the song was a hit. So I'm trying to write one of these songs. I need just one foreign word and I'm off. You can't just, open a dictionary and look up the Polish word for doorknob. It doesn't work like that. It has to be something really offbeat. So I looked all over. I looked in the back, cans of Shinola, every place imaginable. And I just couldn't seem to find the right word. And then a few months ago, I was performing in Chicago, and then Jane and I had to jump down to Miami. And we stopped in New Orleans for about half an hour at the airport. And as I stood up to get off my magazine, the stewardess came down. She put a plastic card on my chair, and it had the word occupado on it. If you travel a lot, you've seen these cards that say occupado. Now the weird thing is that on all the airplanes in South America, these cards just say occupied. They must have had a problem at the canal, but anyway, that's I didn't care about that. As soon as I saw that word, I knew that my search for the obscure foreign word was over. So I've written this very romantic ditty. Her seat was occupado when I got on the plane. I moved in with bravado, and I'd do it again. She whispered no fumare in a voice so divine. Her seat was occupado, but so was mine. I have a little bit the problem that Victor Morgan does, because we both play the piano, we both do comedy, and the thing that most of us hear all the time is, well, that was funny, but why don't you play something straight and stop horsing around? So I'll do that just briefly. It's very difficult to say who is the greatest composer of popular music of the century, because it's partly a matter of taste, it's not a scientific matter. But among musicians, there's a particular kind of respect for Jerome Kern.
sitting in with that superb Jacksonville orchestra we heard earlier. Hi, Phyllis. I've been otherwise occupied in recent weeks and wasn't paying attention to some of the details. I've been looking forward, needless to say, eagerly to being here, but I wasn't sure what my office was sending in the way of music, so I found out that they sent the arrangements of 2 of my numbers. And the first is a very fast jazz composition called Playing the Field. Let's play it too fast and see what happens. Someone in my office apparently thought, wisely enough, that an old number of mine called Spring in Maine would be suitable. Unfortunately, instead of sending the big band jazz arrangement, they sent a vocal arrangement, which I have never done, and which calls for about 47 violins. But game trooper that I am and that the band is, we're going to go through with it anyway. Otherwise, we get very quiet out here for the next 3 minutes. All set, guys? This is in three-quarter time. I don't have 3/4 with me. We'll play that. I don't read music, but I'm trying to remember what key this thing is. the reason they're closing the curtain now is they have to do something behind the curtain, and that's why they have curtains at all, because of so, if we open the curtain now, would there really be curtains for whoever is doing and therefore, I said, how should we fill up about 2 minutes for them to change something? They said, play something else at the piano, so I'll be glad to do that. Incidentally, I would be happy as he had forgotten what I said in my letter. It's interesting to hear it played back to me, but I'm very happy, obviously, to be here, otherwise why would I be here? But there's a certain pleasure that those of us who work mostly to cameras and studios derive from getting out and performing live without the obstruction of cameras and television formalities, because you get to meet people. I'm over at the, I was standing out in front of the Holiday Inn this afternoon. That's where I'm staying, out in front of the Holiday Inn. No, seriously, I was there, and I was going out as a middle-aged woman was coming in, and she turned around, she began to snap her fingers and point at me. Now, if you're in the public eye, for whatever reason, you get a lot of that snapping and pointing. And it's a body language, and what it means is not all that flattering. It means, you feel like you're in an American Express commercial, because it means your face has been recognized, but the name is not a name. Aren't you, no doubt, it's, And I started to tell her, she says, come on, you don't have to tell me who you are. We love you, we watch you all the time. You're, I said, Steve Allen. She said, no. It's those things that kind of make it all worthwhile to make these trips. But again, I'm supposed to fill up just about another minute or two, so I'll play one chorus of another magnificent melody, about 50 years old, by the inimitable Jerome Kern. It's called The Song Is You. there's another reason that I was more than happy to come here to honor Mort Glosser this evening, and that's that quite aside from music, even more basically, he's a teacher. And at 2 points in my early life, teachers picked me up from some strange path I was wandering along and got me back on the center lane, and in a sense, that sense anyway, saved my life. So I am indeed always happy to go theoretically anywhere to pay respects to, as Professor Lowi mentioned earlier, the unsung heroes and heroines of our culture. They are teachers, they are public servants in many instances, doctors, nurses, administrators, policemen, firemen, military people. Very few of them ever are formally recognized as heroic, but many of them are, and it's always good to be reminded of that. And now, Ted, if you'll join me here, we can feel our way towards the next stage of our proceedings.
Because I'm following such an extraordinary act, I've written down mine, Steve. And I'd like Mort Glosser to join us again. It's important for the two of you to be out here for this. Please, Mort. He got a nap in the meanwhile, I'm sure. All his stories now. This time I'm not following an act, but I'm preceding one because, as far as I'm concerned, the climactic moment is yet to come. It is an honor as well as a pleasure to make a kind of presentation. I say a kind of presentation because it's almost unique, certainly in my experience, and very rare in anyone's experience, which is to make this kind of presentation. Let me read one more excerpt from my letter to Steve Allen of last year, very pertinent to this moment. We, the alumni and the people of Gadsden, do not want to honor Mort Glosser with words or with things. Neither have ever meant much to him. Music and people have meant far more, preferably when taken together. We have therefore decided to commission a piece of music in his honor, and we can think of no one more appropriate to write that music than you. We would like a piece of music for band, preferably a march. We would like to commission it in his honor and arrange for its first performance in Gadsden at a date of mutual convenience, after which we would of course want to see it published and widely disseminated among all amateur wind ensembles. What you are about to hear, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of mine, is Mort Glosser's March. This is what we have commissioned. Mort, this is our living memorial to you. What good, after all, would be a silver loving cup? You'd sit it on your mantle and occasionally enjoy it. In fact, you'd have to cut it in two to give one piece to Kathy and one piece to Dinka. Would they please stand, as a matter of fact? They're out there somewhere. Let us see Kathy and Dinka. So, Mort, we didn't want to give you a loving cup. We wanted to give you a living cup. And with Mort Glosser's March, our cup runneth over. Mort, you will not believe what you will hear. Steve Allen has outdone himself in this achievement. We've all pitched in, and I would like to recognize particularly Bill Elton, the band alumni of my own class of 1949, who was cheaper than a psychiatrist during this period, and being my point man in Los Angeles, living too far away to come, but I want you to know he has been an important factor in all of this. But I want you also to know that this is not only our presentation on memorial to you, Mort, is not only entitled Mort Glosser's March or the Mort Glosser March. Listen carefully to its subtitle when it will be published. This may be slightly adjusted, but this is my preference at the moment. Dedicated to all band directors by the bands of Gadsden, Alabama in 1936-1986. The march will be published. It will be distributed throughout the United States and played by thousands of kids for years to come. In fact, a performance is already scheduled for the fall concert of the Cornell University Band next October. So what you will hear in just a moment, Mort Glosser, is your living cup from the bands of Gadsden playing tonight, Gadsden-native Sansom, and all the bands from the past 50 years. And I'll guarantee you from bands for the next 50 years. God bless you, Mort. That's your living memorial.
combined Emma Sansom High School and Gadsden High School bands under the directions of Derry Pilkington and David Bearden. Hit it! like to, in closing, thank Mr. Steve Allen for his generous contribution in honor of Dr. Mort Glosser. I also think I would be remiss if I did not mention a couple of other people who did so much to make this evening the success that it is. The chairman of this committee that brought you this wonderful evening of entertainment, Mr. Bob Pine. Bob. MD Garland. MD, would you stand wherever you are? Thanks, MD. Ladies and gentlemen, Reunion 85. Thank you for coming.
I just have to say that people around here have been a whole lot nicer to me than I can ever repay. If I live to be 1,000 years old, I'll still be behind all the nice things that have happened to me here in Gadsden.